Hi, all. Good morning. Thanks for joining today. I think last week we didn't have the session because of the long weekend, but today we are going to continue our previous track, the Microsoft Azure Architecture Technology AZ 303 exam. That is the one we are continuously learning. And today we are going to continue the data platform architecture. Let me take you to the topics like where we stopped and okay, so most of the areas we covered, and we are going to finish the data platform architecture. So the highlighted area is the one we stopped previously, and I think the ASP.NET application talking to Azure SQL DB for transaction, which we have done a demo when we talk about the web. So basically this, you don't need to know much about that, like simply take your SQL credential and configure it in your ASP.NET. Either you can use a connection string, user ID password, or you can use key vault configuration. So that is going to be helpful. But today we'll be focusing on Cosmos DB. I think the Cosmos DB overview we explored initially, but the focus today will be like the structure of the Cosmos DB. We are going to learn some basics today. So let me skip the previous ones. Okay, I think the Cosmos DB today's focus, we will be creating some Cosmos DB database and how we can scale the Cosmos DB. Those items we are going to cover today. And most of you already know the Cosmos DB is your NoSQL based, the JSON format based storage, and it gives you key value pair and column family, documents, database, graph. So it gives you a variety of choices, which also comes with a variety of APIs like a SQL-based API or a Kremlin for graph and table format, also the Cassandra and MongoDB. So these are the APIs are available, but the data can be stored in 4 different model here. And also you know that guaranteed speed at any scale, and it is globally distributed. When you create a database in UK, you can also distribute the same information in other regions. It's just a configuration that will automatically replicate the data. Within the 30 minutes, your new region will be ready. Also, you can do the business continuity by replicating. Also, you can use for read write, like for example, you are in the e-commerce application or retail application, and the application is going to be accessed globally, and the people from South America, if they are trying to access and you wanted to, for a low latency, you want to allow them to connect to the database available in the region near to them, then you can, whenever you create a Cosmos DB, you can create one more read write replica in your South America region. Then you can just point out to them. That's way you can make sure the users are getting low latency, as well as when you're doing this kind of challenging configuration in the real world, you will have lots of trouble. But in the Cosmos DB, it makes your life easier. Just one tick boxes exercise, it automatically replicate. And like for example, you have one read write in Europe region, one in South America. Both are going to be available for you to read write. So whatever you are read writing here will be automatically synchronized with the other read copy here. Also, you can have a read only copy in other regions. So the main advantage, business continuity and low latency, those kind of challenges you can address. That is the main beauty of Cosmos DB. And today we are going to be first initially we'll focus on some theory, and then we'll focus on the demo. So when you want to create a Cosmos DB, first you need to create a Cosmos DB account. This account is your it's acting as a organizational entity for your databases. It's also connects your usage to your Azure subscription for billing purpose. So that the main top level entity is organizational entity, which is the Cosmos DB account you need to create. I will show you some picture that will give you some easy to understand. So the other information we talk about, like you have a variety of APIs, 4 different type of APIs supported. You can use those to connect, but SQL APIs is the preferred data model, because like whatever the way we query SQL databases, SQL queries, the same way you can use this SQL API to query your data sitting in your Cosmos DB. As you know, Cosmos DB is a JSON format, right? Like a key pair value. So any data stored there, you can call by key and then you get the value. And that is the advantage here. In case you have a different scenario, like if you're working on a marketing analytical application where you need a MongoDB, then you can simply use MongoDB based API. I will show you the settings when we go into Azure portal. And the other items to cover today, I think optionally you can also create your virtual network, geo redundancy. So as we've seen, like any cloud services, some are directly supported to create within your virtual network, some are not sitting in your virtual network, but you can configure service endpoint. So the service endpoint will restrict the access to the Cosmos DB or SQL DB. But in this case, Cosmos DB actually supporting virtual network. So when we create a if you remember, like creating a virtual machine, you can create within the virtual network. The same way, when you're creating Cosmos DB, you can create within the virtual network. That will help you to manage your security as well. So the another theoretical item you need to remember, which is request unit. Request unit is actually it measures the throughput using request unit. The request unit measured by seconds. That's why you are seeing like a request unit /s. Also, this information is more important because when you are creating a Cosmos DB, you have to allocate throughput for that. Like obviously, you have auto scaling serverless concept, but those are very expensive. It is like technically Azure gives you more benefit, auto scaling and manually configuring throughput, but it's all goes into costing. So the costing is if you wanted to be more cautious about the costing, then you can set up your throughput based on the request unit. It's a theoretical. Now you will be confused what is theoretical request unit. When we go into the screen, we will show more, and we will understand that also. Again, the request unit, how we will be okay, request unit is nothing but like it's a capacity planning, like how much resources you need to support your Cosmos DB. So it is based on number of queries, number of size of the item, indexing size, property count, data consistency, and there are various factors are involved to identify your request unit, sorry. Number of queries, like how much query you are expecting in a single second, or how many read write you are expecting. So you will be doing a capacity exercise before you create the Cosmos DB. So basically, sometimes majority company, what they do, they start with the minimum basic default configuration, and then they slowly increase. But if you wanted to make sure that you are going with the minimal viable product, then you need to identify how much minimum you need. So let me take you to the calculator. Maybe that will give you some input. If you can see the screen now, it shows you some of the Cosmos DB account level settings, where by doing this calculator, it will tell you how much throughput you need. Like the default value is 400 request unit by second. And as I mentioned, in the Cosmos DB, you have a variety of APIs. Most of the time, we can go with the SQL core. And again, number of regions, like you can decide globally distributed data like whether you wanted to distribute this data more than one region. So you can, if you, for example, if I say I wanted this in the 5 different region and multi-region rights, as you know that replication, geo-replication is only for disaster recovery, but multi-region rights helps you for low latency. So you can, if you wanted to enable, then you can enable this. This way, as we discussed the South America concept and Europe concept, like both local people can read write on the local copy. That's why we are enabling multi-region. Then you can say like transaction store. For now, I'm just going to keep default. Then item size. What is the item size? Queries per second. For example, if I say like 100 queries per second, some create, update, delete activities. If I simply increase some number like 100, this is 500. So based on your application demand, you can calculate this. I'm just, for rough calculation, I'm saying these are my read write expectation. Then when I click calculate, now you can see this side, the record throughput unit, it is increased to 100,000 request unit is needed because of the capacity request I have made here, and the cost per month also specified here. This is too high, but this is just a sample we calculated here. So based on this,
yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, because the cost becomes so high. Is it commercially this viable, or just for?
So if you're normally going with the SQL Server, right?
Okay.
You don't have any benefit, right? Like what we are discussing here. If you remember the concept we talk about, let me go back. So you have a retail, like a similar to Amazon, we have some retail website, and the retail website globally distributed, like someone is accessing from South America and they want to see the data locally for a low latency. If you use a SQL Server, one in Europe, you are hosting from UK, and if you're trying to access from here, what will happen? The latency is too high and the performance is poor. But if they have the local copy here, they can get the local data, but the same time you have another challenge to maintain the data because you're master in Europe, right? So that data and this data has to be synchronized. So what you will do, you need to create a two SQL server here and replicate now and then and make sure the data is consistent. So all of these are involved. So if you calculate by that concept, then the price is cheaper in Cosmos DB. But the calculation we used here, it's pretty much like a rough calculation, just for showing how you calculate. Like basically, the request unit is important before we go into the next level. Request unit is the one key concept which helps you to identify the throughput, and then the next one is partition. You need to understand the partition is again. It is like a logical partition, and in case if you have a data like a Cosmos DB database you are creating, and you are going to store the data in the Cosmos DB, because it is not a relational table, it is going to be a JSON format, right? Like key and pair value. But key and pair value, still you need to define some sort of partition. That partition will help you to retrieve your data. So each partition can support 20 GB storage. So the partition here is similar. It's not like same like a table, but it is similar to table concept. Like you create a table, you define the employee table and leave application. Different table you create in the relational database. But here you create a partition, like user ID is one partition and product ID is another partition. This way you can easily query the data. In case if you create a user ID, it's a good choice for your application frequently access to your personalized settings, shopping carts, or order history. if you want to retrieve this, you need to know user ID information. So you can create a user ID is one partition, product ID is another partition, but user ID can maximum grow 20 GB. So what you will do, again, it is not same as table. It is logically, you can imagine you are structuring your data in a different partition. And here you can see another example is given. Because you have a 20 GB limit, if I create a user ID and I can query the user ID partition, but what if the 20 GB, I need more than 20 GB data? Then you can, what you can do, monthly you can create one partition by date or date wise or month wise. So user ID hyphen date is one partition, which gives you like customer name hyphen date. So this way, every day information about this customer in this partition, so that you can easily query. So this is the resource model which I was explaining before. So you need to first create the organizational entity of database account, and then the account will have a database, and the database will have a container, and the container will maintain your store procedures, user defined functions, triggers, conflicts, and the container also holds your items like a product catalog. The database is for your retail, and product catalog is your container. Then the items will be stored here. Then each container level, you can have depending on your API configuration you made it initially, you can use a collection or a table or a graph. That's also supported. And item level, you have a document, row, node, edge. These are the way you can retrieve the data by calling your API. Today we are going to create the Cosmos DB with all this configuration, but actual querying the data we'll be exploring next week. So now if you are familiar what is account, Cosmos DB account, database and container, then we'll go into the actual creation. Again, we talk about
Karthik, the container, we can say it is a partition. Okay, yeah.
So container can have more than one partition also.
Okay.
Let me quickly want to. Where is it? Here. Partition key. So for example, here where is my slide? So this database, you can call it like a product database, but the container can be a clothing. So this retail industry, I create a database as a product. Within that, I can have a clothing as my container. So all clothing related information stores in the item. So that way you can create a more than one container for your database. So if so next one, partition. In this example, you can see there is a container, partition key is city, and the city level, you have city London, city New York. So there are different type of data, right? Because it's a key pair value, JSON format, it maintains, if you call city and the London value, that will be in one JSON format here. For New York, there will be another key pair value. So anything related to London will be grouped here. Because it is globally distributed, you can see the partition data. It's in the region 1, region 2, region, any number of region. It's replicated immediately, and it maintains the same set of data. So that is the main advantage with the Cosmos DB. So now quickly we can see the Azure portal, how it look like. So if I go to my Azure Cosmos DB, where I'm going to create my Cosmos DB first. So before I create, first it is asking me to select my account. As we know that this is the top level entity. So I'm going to say what is my resource group underscore. So I create my first account within this resource group, and then I'm going to give the account name. It could be like a unique value you will be providing. So in our case, we can probably provide some. Let me take some example. I think probably like I'll say MK Azure user group. Okay. So I gave my account name and it is available. And then the API, this is the one we are referring before. So APIs are the way you call this database to connect the data, and it supported multiple variety here. One is the core SQL. This is easy way to call the data, whatever the data JSON format, key pair value sitting in this database. You can simply do a SQL query via this API. And these are like a Cosmos DB for MongoDB API. If you have a demand to use MongoDB based API, then you can select. And then you have other varieties like Cassandra, Azure Table, Kremlin Graph. This graph database mainly used for the entity relationship, like your parent, like in the insurance industry, like you have insurance or private wealth management. You are invested. You are one customer. Your grandfather is invested, and father, you and your wife, your kids, all are invested. And how do they find out that these all are like in one family tree? So they need to have maintain some sort of graph data. So this kind of graph will help you to structure that. So in today's example, we are just going to select core SQL, which is industry standard, widely used. And then the location I'm going to select. Here, if I say like West Europe, and capacity mode, as I mentioned, like you have a serverless and provision throughput. Provision throughput is manually you are configuring your request unit, whereas in serverless, you don't need to specify that. Currently, serverless in preview. In serverless, it maintains and based on the demand, but in the provision throughput, you have to define the calculator, whatever we've seen earlier, you will have to calculate how much you need. The default is 400 resource units, which I'm going to request unit. We are going to keep it. And again, like you have a free tier discount. I think for now I'll just select do not apply. Next, your global distribution. So the global distribution, as I mentioned in the picture, you can geo redundancy, multi-region rights, availability zones. So multi-region I want to enable, and in case if I wanted to availability zones, that's also I can enable. For now, I'll say disable and just go to network. In the network, where you can say like you want to create your private network, then you can configure here. Currently, I'll keep it as all network, and create review. So it's trying to check the validation passed. So it creates my account. So once account is created, we will try to create our database and partition and our containers. It normally takes few seconds, if not. If it is going to take more time, then I have another sample I'll run through from there. Let's wait for a couple of seconds.
Karthik, quick question.
Yes, please.
So the Cosmos DB is storing everything in the key value pair, right?
Sorry, say it again.
It's the Cosmos DB stores everything in the key value pair, right?
Yeah.
But you can query in different ways using the API still, like in the core SQL way
Yeah.
or different.
That's right. That's why we are creating a partitions, and
Okay.
partitions can help us to retrieve the data.
Okay. But at the end of the day, it's getting stored in the key value pair.
Yeah, and it depends. Like you, if you wanted, because we saw that it also supporting various other format, like so it also support key value, column family, document type.
Okay. All right.
uh,
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but even all of this, you still need a select the API. Even if you select documents, you can still use APIs
Different.
which is suitable for your division.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so our account is created. Let me go to the resource. Now you can see this is a Cosmos DB account we created. And now I'm just going to see some of the settings here, the basics. Pretty much in every settings you have like overview, activity log, IAM role, where you configure the permissions for individual users or resource. And pretty much you can tag the this account and quick starts, and then the data explorer. This is where we create our database and containers. Also, you can create some sample for play around by clicking this. This will create some sample Cosmos DB, but we will create a new one, whatever we need. So I go to new container, and here pretty much I'm going to select my product as my document, the database name. So here I select the products and create new. And the auto scaling or manual, depend on the throughput you need, you can select. But here in this case, the max request unit, we are selecting 4,000. I'm just going to leave it as it is. But if you are doing the proper capacity planning, you will know by doing that calculation, you know which one to select. And the container is your clothing is our container for the database. So product is our database and container is clothing. And here is the one we need to select the product partition key. So because it is a product and is going to be clothing related, I will simply select a product ID as my clothing, but you can use different values depending on your scenarios. So simply select OK. Maybe next week we will have the actual query to table. Like I think we have some questions, how we query, how we retrieve the data, right? So probably like we can have some sort of like a demo next week to cover how we retrieve the data, how we actually insert the data, stuff like that. I think this session will end in 10 minutes. So quickly, I will run through the things we aim to cover today. So actually, I was aiming. Okay, so Cosmos DB building at scale is the one we created now. So we created a database, and we Cosmos DB account, and then we created the product as a database, and container is our clothing, and partition ID also we selected. The next one we will be like how globally distributing. We will check that quickly, and before that I'll show you how our database is created now. So here you can see it shows SQL core API is the one we selected, and here you can see the product is our database, and container is clothing. Where as I picture shown you in the picture, the clothing container level you have actual item, and also your store procedure, all other informations can store here. Item is the one actually maintaining your data. So as I mentioned, like because it's a SQL API, you can simply run a query like this. So I have another sample one where you can see how the data is stored. Okay. So here, same thing, like as I mentioned, like sample DB created here, which has a person as a container. When I go to item, I can actually see, oops. So here you can see the key is ID, maintained here unique ID, and the value is the first name. And this you can select by like a normal SQL query you can do here. So currently the select star from C, and then if you wanted to run a query, select star from C. You can say like what is your ID you're looking for. Similar to SQL queries, you can run it. That will give you the data here. So this is the one of the example how the data stored here, key value pair. And okay, so the another items we want to see today is replicating to other regions. So minimize this. So in our example, I go to the replicate data globally, and here you can see this is currently I have created our primary account in West Europe. That's what here is West Europe is selected here. Tick. If I want to replicate our data table to other regions like Brazil, I simply select this tick box, and you can see here Brazil South is selected, and I wanted to also do it in somewhere in the UAE North, and one in probably like Mumbai, Central India. So simply I selected 4 different region, and the regions are selected here. If I simply save, all these other regions are replicated. And this is the beauty, right? Like when we are discussing initially, this configuration, we have to put more effort in traditional relational database model. You have to create another region availability set, SQL database or Azure PaaS services, and then you have to replicate. All other things are here you have to maintain. But here it's just a tick box, as I mentioned, like simply you select and click save. Automatically your West Europe will be replicated to other regions. So this is one of the way to replicate data. And for example, now I'll simply select one region, which is normally expensive, India, and then say save. It's also read enable as well as read write enable. So the two regions are going to act as a master and master, active. So now our databases are created. I go back. As I mentioned, like this will take some times to replicate. So once this replication happen, then you can simply select the region. In case you wanted to maintain one as a primary, then you simply can use automatic failover or manual failover. So this is the one of the way you can maintain your data replicating globally. And other one, default consistency, because you have a two different region maintaining your data. You can also select how you wanted to make sure your data is actually consistent. This gives you multiple way. You can select one of the model to maintain which one to be consistent. And also you have the backup, restore, and firewall. Initially we didn't configure. In case if you wanted to have a network, you want to select a particular network to be main primary to bring your data, you can select. And the keys like the database what were created, this is the keys from your front end. You can use your primary key or secondary key to access your Cosmos DB data here. Okay, I think today I will close from here. We have another 3 minutes to ask any questions, and the next week I will set up another demo and where we can actually see some data inserting, querying, and how we use APIs, etc.
Karthi, one question, sorry. When you did the replicate, right, you replicated to different regions in the world.
Yeah.
So how does the cost work for that? Do we know how much is it going to cost us if you're replicating into the Central America or North America or the South America or Brazil? How do we know how much it's going to cost us?
So in the cost calculator, if you remember, we selected here number of regions, right?
Okay, so here,
if I say one region, but keep everything same for argument's sake. So one region, my cost is 1,474 per month.
yeah.
If I say I wanted to do it in the 2 region, this
So
is cost you.
cost is generally just how many regions. You can choose any region, is that?
Yeah. Depend on your
Okay.
application need, right? Like Amazon kind of websites, they don't care about this cost per month, right? Because the reputation is important.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, because I thought the some of the regions are high availability regions, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what maybe the region-wise cost. Okay, there is no.
That is true. Like normally, North America, US regions are expensive.
Yeah.
Europe, India, and like cheaper. But I think it's just give you a, some rough estimation here, but it's not the exact one. When you start using this particular region, you will know the actual rate.
Okay. All right. So this is just an example.
Yeah. It's just a rough estimation for you to start with.
Rough estimation. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Because whatever the calculation we have mentioned here, sometimes it will be higher or lower, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I don't know, really like 100 queries per second is 24 hours. It's different values, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just only the rough, like maybe like if I say 10 queries per second, and everything's like 50. So now you see that cost is changed from 5,000 to 500.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
If anyone have any questions, then we can rejoin or we can close here.
Thank you, Karthik.
Okay, super. Hope you guys are following. In case you have anything to discuss, please message me in the WhatsApp. We can continue there, and please stay with us. You will learn different kind of scenarios, and definitely it will be useful in different areas.
Sure, Karthik. Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Guys.
Karthik.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, Karthik. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.